Weather coming up in the Saturday Night Showdown as Kearse stamps down on social media companies over what he deems to be fake news. A look at some of the porkies Labour have told to see whether they should be sent to the gulags first under this free speech clampdown. Maybe it would give David Lammy some time to grow a cervix. We'll also be looking at naughty tweets from one of Labour's MPs that have resurfaced. She's not a fan of Estonians, apparently, which is a pretty niche racism, to be honest. And we'll have the Amnesty International woman, who is the best excuse of the week. She was filmed clapping along while a Labour politician apparently called for the throats of political dissidents to be slashed, but says she was clapping because she didn't hear what he said. You're standing right next to him. He had a megaphone. Maybe you should get your ears checked. And as two Islamic extremists are barred from Taylor Swift's concerts just because they wanted to practice their authentic tradition of conducting a mass terror attack, I'll be asking, is Taylor Swift Islamophobic and should Keir Starmer extradite her? All that and much more. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. Discussing all tonight's topics with me are my brilliant panel. Joining me tonight are the comedian Ben Adams and the lawyer, TV presenter and international playboy Andrew Eborn. Look at them over there like Crockett and Tubbs. I'm not sure which one's which. Now I'm joined tonight by Andrew Eborn and Ben Adams. Andrew, you're a lawyer, so I'm going to start with you, because a key principle of the law should be that it shouldn't be easy to accidentally break the law. You can't accidentally burgle a house, for example. But Keir and the government were warning that, watch out what you post because you might accidentally break the law.
Yes, lawful but unwise. Maybe that's something else on that sort of basis. You have to work on the basis that everything has to be transparent. It has to be very easy to understand. And the optics, as they say in politics, on this are horrendous. Yeah. It's got to be freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences. If you clamp down on everything, it's going to be absolute nonsense. As you know, I present this series, Fake or Facts. Yeah. They could get rid of it, get rid of fake news altogether, and work on that sort of basis. But you also have to determine what makes sense. What is fake news? Because sometimes it gets revealed much, much later on. And if you put an obligation on these various media platforms, the social media platforms, to enforce it, it's going to be quite a heavy obligation. Yeah. And actually, it's going to be completely unworkable.
Yeah, and also there was issues such as, the Hunter Biden laptop story was smeared as fake news. Like the Democrats and the social media platforms colluded to bury it and classify it as fake news, even though it was real and it could have really, swung the election.
I think nowadays you just don't know what's real at all. You literally can't trust anything. And then the idea that people are sort of walking past a newspaper or even reading a newspaper at this point. No one reads newspapers. But the idea that they're doing that and then suddenly going, right, oh my God, I've got to get to Greg's. It's just... It's nonsense.
Yeah,
like, it's
or looking at Twitter. People are saying, "Oh, Andrew Tate is stirring up this, this evil mob." It's like nobody's looking at Andrew Tate and being like, "Well, there's a dependable source for information." You know what I mean?
I don't know why you would look at Twitter and then suddenly go, "Yeah, this is 100% right." Yeah. Or anything really. Twitter.
Well, the biggest problem is this. It was Channel 3 Now, you might remember, that started this wrong rumour about the murder of these three little girls at a Taylor Swift party. Right. And Channel 3 Now, it's still up there. People said it was a Russian state. It's not. They're based in America. They've only got 3,418 followers, so they're not that big. Yeah. But they wrongly claimed, they put out a post saying it was an Islamic particular person. They even had a photo of somebody. And that misinformation is what caused a lot of the upset. So you're absolutely right. We need to look at that mischief. And the thing about the law, in order to get clarity, you need to knowingly do something. Yep. If you're knowingly putting out information which is likely to cause a riot or mens rea, look at you with your mens rea or women's rea or trans rea, you can have all of that. But it's exactly that. You have your actus reus, which is your actual deed, and the mens rea, which is your guilty mind. And you have to have both to make it work.
Yeah. And I think we often have guilty minds, but looking at, because you're a comedian, Ben.
I am. Remind him. It's so good. Yes, funny you should say that.
Yeah. Looking at fake news, so much satire could be classed as fake news. Yeah. Sometimes we say something, and obviously we're British, so we've got this ironic deadpan, the face, the surface level isn't what we're actually saying.
I'm so scared to be ironic in any way now, because people are just like, oh my God, he thinks that. That's just madness. Yeah, it's it's just very hard to sort of say anything. But I mean, what you were saying there about the misinformation with those three little girls and stuff, it's like, I don't really think it was the misinformation that made people riot. I think people were already expecting something to happen, and you know, the guy was Welsh, born and bred, and you know, I think he wore a Welsh flag every day, and that's fine. But
probably one of the most Welsh people I've ever.
Do you know? Definitely. And because he was saying that all the time.
Yeah,
he was always that. I think that was pretty good Welsh.
That was Welsh, was it? I thought it was brilliant. I love it.
I was going to get you a glass of water.
But no, I think that there was already a precedent set of people just angry anyway, and you know, it was just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back.
But it is, however, abhorrent that people hijacked the murder of three little girls to go and nick a new telly. There's no relevance at all on that sort of basis.
Is it as abhorrent as killing three little girls, though? Probably not.
Well, that's the thing, because there didn't seem to be a lot of capacity for recognition on parts of the left that people were genuinely horrified by this. And on some level, it was worse even than, you know, when terrorist bombs go off, because this was a very, you know, he did it with a knife.
It was horrendous. But the families, in answer to your question, the families themselves, they pleaded, please don't hijack our grief. We don't want you rioting. It's just making it even worse for us.
But then people understood. People understood when, you know, BLM happened, and the BLM riots were over a criminal in America who died resisting arrest, and he was a violent criminal. And to be honest, I didn't see that as you know, as appalling as these killings.
That was awful. And yeah, it's just, I think, like you say, the families pleaded, but everyone had so much pent-up anger that they just had to get out somewhere. Obviously, it wasn't a good way to do it, but I'm not surprised by what happened, sort of thing. I can see why they were angry, but didn't go about it.
But it's also the language that's used in the media. People call it a protest. It's not a protest, it's a riot. And you're talking about far right. Well, right so far. You've got to work on something there somewhere. You've got to work on the basis what it is. Sometimes there are just thugs out there looting. Other people, they've got legitimate concerns about what's happening and so on and so forth. And it's a tinderbox waiting to happen. And this is the problem. You've got to separate all of them. The reality is there's some horrible things going on at the moment. We need to be able to clamp down on these sort of things as appropriate, but we need to act responsibly. And also, we have to act very, very quickly. You compare what's happening to Kearse, you work on that sort of basis. Look at what happened at Manchester Airport, for example, and they're still investigating it. You get the drip feed of the video where somebody was apparently stamping on somebody's head. Then later on, you've got a bit more of a different video. It's the scuffle beforehand. And I can tell you, a bit more of a... and broke her nose. It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And a new one's coming out as well with this pepper spray, which is illegal for people to use. And that's going to be more and more charges are coming out. The reality is they've been very slow to charge people, which is why we can talk about it in the media, as opposed to all these people who are appearing in court as a result of the riots.
I mean, Andrew, do you think there will be appeals, because, you know, so many of these sentences do seem on the heavy side, and also they didn't go through the same sort of process that they normally do.
Well, one of the problems that we have in the media is that we're always looking for the headline, so it's clickbait. And so what happens is, you're right, you just look at the sentence. The reason they started to televise the sentencing process is to aid understanding about what that happens. And there's something called the Sentencing Council, which has a tariff of different sentences, and it's supposed to be a scientific thing. You're supposed to say, if you take into the considerations all these factors, and is there anything that aggravates it or anything that might mitigate it? And there's basically, you then have that little line of what it is to make it as transparent as possible. But you're right, if you just look at the headlines and compare that with that, it looks abhorrent. If you turn around and try and explain what's happened in those particular circumstances, that's the best thing to do. And I always say that sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Well,
you need to work on that sort of basis.
Your bathroom must stink.
Brilliant.
I'm glad you don't work in the kitchen here.
Thank you. But the whole thing about the law, and this is why it's become more and more transparent, the judges, as I say, as opposed to in America, where they wall-to-wall television about coverage. What we have here, people have to get an artist doing a sketch of somebody. You see, that's really good. I've met some of those artists. But they're starting to televise the sentencing, TV or not TV, and the reason for that is to try and explain to the public, look, actually there is a scientific method, if you like, as to how we do those sort of things. But trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. And what you need to work is that sort of principle. Let's restore trust in the justice system, and you need to make it work.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. You might have seen this week that a Labour politician giving a speech to a crowd of anti-hate protesters apparently urged them to cut the throats of right-wing people, and the crowd cheered. I guess that's the kindness and tolerance they tell us about. He's been arrested and charged with encouraging violent disorder, but a representative of human rights group Amnesty International was standing next to him and was seen on film clapping. Remember when Amnesty International were a human rights organisation instead of cheering for the extrajudicial killing of political dissidents? Well, she's come up with a fantastic excuse. She couldn't hear it, apparently. Couldn't hear it? You might want to get your ears checked, love. You were standing right next to the guy and he had a megaphone. Incredibly, The Guardian painted her as a hero in this article with the headline, "Anti-racism activist in London reports break-in attempt after far-right threats." Oh, she's a victim. The article said Ulrike Schmidt, an activist with Stand Up to Racism and Amnesty International, said she woke up at 5 a.m. on Friday to the sounds of someone trying to break into her home in the northeast London borough. Passers-by on their way to a nearby mosque for morning prayers challenged the would-be intruder, who smashed the window of a car parked outside the property and fled. She said, "We know there are elements among the far right who are hardcore Nazis and they are happy to kill. But Ulrike, they haven't killed anyone and you're the one cheering on the killing." I mean, does it show that people will go along with anything if they think the group that they're in will allow it?
Yes, basically.
There you go. That's very good.
I'm glad we got to the bottom of that.
I always walk around, headphones in, and just clap at people, just in case they're saying something that, you know, I might agree with, and it's just ridiculous. Again, silly. It's all just so ridiculous. And I think the best way to destroy fascism is to shout people down and threaten violence as well until they agree that fascism is bad.
Yeah, the best way to... Ulrike seems to think that the best way to combat fascism is with stronger, greater...
Yes. Well, the hardcore Nazis, I suppose those soft types, you know, you're working on that as a basis. No, but you're absolutely right. Everything you say, everything you do, every person you stand next to, pictures of that will end up in the wrong hands. So you've got to work on that sort of basis. People always say history repeats itself because people don't learn the lessons from history.
We should go back to social distancing. Someone is saying something that we don't
But
like.
the great thing is now with AI, so fake news was the word, well, 2 words of the year in 2017. AI was the word in 2023. You combine both of them, and fake news and AI, it's absolutely explosive combination. And that's going to happen. Even if you haven't got the pictures, we can fake it. Even if you haven't got the videos, we can fake it. So work on that premise. You've got to question everything.
And do you think Amnesty International have completely shot their credibility now? Because I don't think, as far as I can tell, they haven't fired her. They haven't distanced themselves from her. They seem to have accepted the excuse that she didn't hear what the guy was saying.
Yes.
And I was a member of Amnesty International because, you know, contrary to what a lot of people on Twitter say, you know, I believe in human rights and all the rest of it. And they used to be a great organisation who stood up for those freedoms and stood up for persecuted dissidents and, you know, all around the world. But then they turned on Alexei Navalny and jettisoned him, threw him under the bus, which is a huge propaganda coup for Putin. And do you think this is the final nail in it?
Well, I think what happened, you made a really good point. And the question, I advise every organisation, you've got to have a very transparent way. How do you deal with these situations? As soon as it arrives, you can turn around and say, this is the procedure that we followed. Whilst they're investigating, either they're going to be suspended, we're going to get all the facts and so on and so forth. But the fact they haven't done anything, as far as we can see, to deal with it, raises that whole sort of issue. And it does go to credibility. Same with, you know, the BBC. You have about that sort of thing. There's always going to be questions about how quickly did they act in certain situations.
Yeah. Who's messaging there on WhatsApp? Questions like that. What's he doing with that, Tom?
Well, no, exactly. You work on rough justice. You work on that sort of basis. And what's going to happen each time? That's why I say history repeats itself because you don't learn the lessons from history.
Yeah.
What you have to do to get trust restored is to say, here's our procedure in these situations. We followed that procedure and we're going to continue following that to make it fair on everybody.
Absolutely. Now, moving on. Imane Khelif, the controversial boxer who reportedly has male XY chromosomes, won Olympic gold in the women's boxing. The Algerian was reported to have failed gender eligibility tests and been disqualified from the World Championships. He said attacks over his gender eligibility gave his victory a special taste and complained about bullying and bigotry. I mean, were you pleased to see domestic violence becoming an Olympic sport, Ben?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I like to watch domestic violence any moment I can. But also, I like the idea, as just a huge sexist, I like the idea that we can just replace all women with men. Right. In every walk of life, just replace women and call them women, and everyone will be fine with that, apparently.
Well, there is a theory that the high proportion of transgender people in software development is because software development companies realised it was easier to get men and convince them to be women than it was to teach women how to code.
That's certainly the thing. I think we have to make the difference, though, to be fair on this. And what happens is the different rules that they had. So the particular person here, as I see in your report, you called it he, they always lived their life as a woman. That's what they've said. Always lived. So from birth all the way, they raised up to the passports and everything else. That's what they did. The reason they failed, there was a medical test for a different boxing board, which says you've got that sort of you've got those sort of combinations. Therefore, you're not eligible anymore. The IOC, however, said that the test is your passport, as I understand, and in her passport it said that she was a woman.
Right.
And as a result,
she's technically a woman, even though horrifically and transphobically referred to, or whateverically referred to her as a man because she's got XY chromosomes like a man.
I think there's a difference between she didn't transition at all. There's been no transition, as I understand it.
Have you seen it?
I haven't. I don't want to. But the reality is this. The reason there's a difference in sport is because men are physically more powerful, which is where you started. So we need to look at the categories on that sort of basis. What's that?
Look at these three lads for a start.
Well, exactly. Lovely ladies. I used to work on that sort of basis.
I mean, do whatever you want to do in normal life. That's absolutely fine. But when it comes to, boxing, you can't have a man beating up a woman.
It's quite a safety issue. It's a safety issue.
Exactly.
Like, fair enough in the pole vault or something like that.
Why not? Yeah.
But in a contact sport,
I say no sports whatsoever. Just do what you like in normal life, but
I suppose in defence, the Olympics is about outliers, and this is somebody who's born, apparently female, but just these, they call it DSD, differences in sexual development, the XY chromosome, so effectively a male. But like you say,
I think she's now an outlier.
I'm saying, so she's born, she was assigned female at birth, but has XY chromosomes.
I think this is why, such a sensitive topic. I know we can have a look at things, but I'm very, very clear on this, is that it has to be, if it's something to do with physical strength, and that's the reason for the difference, men should not be in women's sport, full stop.
Agreed.
The difficulty here is it's not the athlete's fault on this one, because it's the IOC who set the eligibility rules.
I don't know, you can maybe have a look at your chromosomes and be like, well, maybe I'm not going to punch women in the face.
No, but we work on that. So I get that as well. But the IOC said these are the people who are eligible to take part in this competition. So is it the athlete's fault? I play devil's advocate occasionally. And so you work on that sort of basis. But there is a difference between the trans side, because this person was not trans. They said they haven't had an op or anything else. I don't know whether that's true. I don't want to look at the history, but that's the reality. And that's the question. So what the focus needs to be on what the rules are for the eligibility.
Okay, well, with the Labour Party currently doing a Venezuelan speed run to institute an authoritarian police state and a bloated, omnipresent public sector, it's hard to remember there was a time when Labour MPs might have shot from the hip instead of repeating the dull socialist mantras of their Borg leader. But it turned out at least one of them was probably fun at parties in 2009. Newly elected Labour MP Lauren Edwards sent a bunch of tweets back in the day saying such naughty things as, Baroness Renthorpe texted me from Walthamstow to say he's seen a halal Pakistani Chinese grill place. Hope he's not suggesting we go there. And most controversially, she tweeted, I want these effing Estonian R words out of my flat now. Now this is clear Estonophobia. She has since apologised and pledged to use her platform for bringing communities together and working with tolerance and respect for all in our society. Should we stop offence archaeology, though? I feel more comfortable with people who shoot from the hip and say what they think than I do with people who speak with tolerance and respect for me and other people. Should we stop all this?
Oh, no, you've got to look back through history, because I said before, everything you said, everything picture you've had, and if not, we'll fake it, will come back to haunt you. J.D. Vance is a great example. You might remember in 2016, he called Donald Trump America's Hitler, potentially on that sort of basis. He said he was a never Trump. And what he then brilliantly did when quizzed about it, he said, well, I saw what a brilliant president he was, and I changed my mind. He's now wonderful. Road to Damascus, JD Vance, which sounds like a cheap sportswear store,
Donald Trump could forgive him.
He did.
I think we need to be more forgiving of,
We do.
even if the Labour MPs be more forgiving, because this is something that would have been said in the corner of a pub back in the day, and now it's, it's there for forever on the internet.
I always, whenever I'm looking at Twitter, or X as it's called now, I always think, well, this person is on the toilet. They're on the toilet, their pants are down, and I think the moment sort of society went downhill completely was when the news started showing Twitter.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not serious. There's someone who's just like, oh, I'm home, drunk, they're cooking some beans. Oh, bloody Estonians. And you think, Estonians as well.
Yeah, it's so specific.
Yeah. Just don't take it seriously. We should never take that seriously. And if you do look back and you see something that someone said that's quite bad,
everybody has said something they regret at a particular moment.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, it's time for Culture Corner. We've got Taylor Swift, Just Stop Oil, and gender clinics, all featuring. See you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now, is Taylor Swift Islamophobic? 2 Islamic extremists were banned from her concerts in Vienna just because they wanted to practice their authentic Islamic extremist tradition of conducting a mass terror attack against children. And a third man, an Iraqi 18-year-old who pledged allegiance to ISIS, has also been nabbed. And 3 Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna have been cancelled, and there are concerns about her upcoming Wembley concerts. There are around 40,000 people on terror watch lists in the UK. Some people find it strange that the West has invited Islamists into its countries and now has to hire security services to stop them blowing up kids. I think it's a good system, though, because I'm not Islamophobic. But do you think Keir Starmer should extradite Taylor Swift and prosecute her?
Absolute nonsense. No, of course not. I mean, joking aside, it was the Taylor Swift party where the 3 girls were murdered. There is a pattern here. Yeah. There's got to be more to it. I've talked about this beforehand, about the Vienna...
There's no... I mean, that's pure speculation.
And that's the thing. You're absolutely right. It's sort of turning Taylor Swift is in terms of a common denominator. Yeah. This is the problem. So she very generously donated to the families and so on and so forth. And you're right. And you're right to actually clarify it's not about the Islamic and that sort of side. But there's a question, isn't there? Because she's now part of this narrative and she's trying to rectify that sort of situation, take the sting out of it. So 2 separate incidents, as you say. She was front and centre. It was a Taylor Swift dance party where they had these 3 girls murdered, which was appalling. The cancellation of the concerts in Vienna, there's got to be more to it than a terror threat, because anybody who puts on a major event at the moment, there are zillions of terror threats. The Olympics at the moment would have been working on all sorts of bases.
They shut down a lot of terror threats for the Olympics.
Exactly, but the Olympics still went ahead. So I think we're not getting the full picture about what happened in Vienna, because the security at these events is absolutely massive, and you need to look at that sort of basis. But you're right to call it out, and it's wrong to put the 2 together. It's not Islamophobic on that sort of basis.
I'm disgusted by Keir Starmer. He comes out, his entire focus is on protecting the Muslim community, and fair enough, they deserve the same protection as everybody else. His entire focus is on rooting out Islamophobia, and I think any prejudice or racism towards Muslim people, that's appalling. That's reprehensible.
Yeah. And he must know this, but he keeps pushing this whole narrative. But I mean, as for Taylor Swift, every concert's probably got, like you said, so many terror threats, so many.
Everything does.
Why is it news? And strangely, Taylor Swift. The name just keeps coming up again and again. And like you say, it's completely unrelated.
It's completely unfair. But also,
we know about
but also I think we have an obligation in the media to try and take the sting out of it. That the words that are used is basically inciting hatred. And we've got to be so careful. Just as that false report, when that came out from Channel 3 Now, which I talked about earlier, that's basically sparked this sort of stuff. That misinformation, the language used as a result of it, is stirring up hate. So we've got to turn down the rhetoric, question everything, because there's a lot of false reports going out there. And prejudices are just coming to the forefront.
Yeah, now, I think most of us have been sick of Just Stop Oil for a while, but now even one of their biggest fans, the green energy tycoon Dale Vince, is fed up with the group. Dale gave lots of funding to the radical activist group when it was protesting to prevent new drilling in the UK, but believes since then it has gone too far. The new Labour government has already pledged to meet Just Stop Oil's demand to stop new drilling. But now the posh, smelly eco-freaks, I'm talking about Just Stop Oil, although that description also fits the Labour Party, want to end all fossil fuel extraction by 2030. Dale said that he was not a fan of Just Stop Oil's new, even more extreme aims, or of its blockading of airports. Maybe he just wants to get away to Tenerife this summer. I mean, what do you make of the Just Stop Oil thing? Do you think people were broadly on their side back in the day, but now they've lost everybody?
I was never on their side. I'd never been on their side. I think they're a bunch of, like you say, just posh, just idiots that spray everything orange, and you think, just go away. Just go. Every time a story comes out, I don't think one person's going, yeah, good on them.
Yeah.
Good on them. This is what we need. This is what we... Oh, we need the Mona Lisa covered in orange paint. We need this.
Yeah.
Just
Stonehenge.
Just stop oil.
Desecrate Stonehenge.
Why?
That'll win us over.
They're sitting around going, I know, right, how can we save the world? Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Spray Stonehenge. Well, of course.
It's an absolute nonsense, and I don't believe, and I've shared many a studio with Just Stop Oil people and things like that, I don't believe there's a single person who's seen their action and has converted to their way of thinking as a result of it. So anybody who might support the thing about oil or the environment or whatever, none of their actions is going to get them to convert on that sort of basis. So Dale's quite right to turn around and say, actually, the Labour Party have said, look, we're not going to issue new licences and so on and so forth. Their pledge just mustn't have anything by 2030. It's just rubbish.
Yeah.
You need to work out the reality of these sort of things, and the misinformation that's being spread about this whole sort of thing needs to stop as well.
Yeah, we need to stop it. Now, I don't understand the controversy over child gender treatment. I had it when I was a little girl and it didn't do me any harm, but new figures have revealed that more than 5,700 under-18s have been left waiting for a specialist appointment at 2 clinics set up to help children who want to change gender. And one of the children waiting for gender treatment is only 5 years old. Gender treatment for kids typically involves hormones, drugs and puberty blockers, followed by surgery to remove breasts or genitalia and construct a simulacra of the opposite gender. The Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust was previously the only clinic providing gender services for children, but it was mothballed when an investigation into gender services, the Kearse review, found that gender treatment for children had nebulous benefits, as puberty usually resolves gender dysphoria, and also had some pretty serious risks, with sterility and other health problems very common. Now, I mean, what do you make of this? 5 years old?
No, it's complete nonsense, isn't it? And what's happened, the BMA as well have sort of turned around and say they're going to disregard the Kearse report and they're going to encourage people. It's wrong. You know, kids, when they're growing up, they experiment with all sorts of things. They dress up. They're not aware of those sort of issues. And you need to go through that sort of stuff. At the same time, we've got to have a sensitive conversation about it. But also, it's the parents and those who are supporting this sort of stuff who say, this is what we're going to do. It's wrong and we have to stop it.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and I don't think my life would have been improved by having a turtle shell irremovably grafted to my...
Oh, I'm not so sure. I would like to have seen that. It would be fantastic.
Mike TV from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Used to dress up as a cowboy. And,
there you go.
That wouldn't have involved any surgery, though.
Yeah.
But, no, I think the parents, exactly. I've always thought there should be a test, maybe a psychological test before someone has children. You've got to go through so many checks before you have a dog, before you adopt. Why can't these people... Oh, I'm pregnant. Well, you've got to come and do this test first, otherwise...
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you look at somebody like in Hollywood, like some of the celebrities, all their kids are transgender or non-binary or whatever, and it's clearly just a cult. Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, it's time for Clown World. We've got JD Vance's comments on childless cat ladies continue to cause controversy. The civil service have been warned against fetish gear, and Iraq is looking at lowering the legal age of marriage. Don't go anywhere else. Now, Kamala Harris has been criticised by Trump for appealing to childless cat ladies. In response, childless cat ladies have been making music videos like this one.
I am childless. I have cats. I am the biggest nightmare of this JD Vance. I am a lady who loves her pets. They are good for taking care of all the rats. Childless cat lady, I am running the whole country. Childless cat lady, meow meow. Watch out, JD. Childless cat lady, we are running the whole country. Childless cat lady, you better watch your back, JD.
Now, that is slightly terrifying. It's quite catchy, though. That could have been number
It's very catchy. I have to ask you, though, what were you searching for on the internet when to come up with that video? It beggars all sorts of questions. But it is catchy, and well done, them. And it's Kamala, by the way, Kamala Harris. Everybody
Kamala.
No, it's Kamala, and she spent an absolute fortune in 2016, including getting lots of high school kids out to tell everybody how to pronounce her name. It's obviously completely wasted money, but it's Kamala, as in the punctuation, as in stop Joe Biden.
2020 foul.
That's exactly.
Yeah, she really changes her accent to appeal to whoever she's with. But JD Vance has been slammed for his comments about childless cat ladies. He's got a point, because without unmarried white women, the Democrat Party would not win.
No.
They actually lead. The Republicans lead in every other demographic group apart from childless white women, who every single one of them pretty much.
Every single one.
Without childless white women, I think we'd all, I'm not going to say be a lot happier, but a lot of things wouldn't be happening. But at least in 10 years' time, I mean, hopefully maybe 5 years' time, she'll also be catless, this lady. So,
oh, that's awful. That's terrible. Oh, look, the phone's going. We love cats.
Catless and childless.
No.
She'll still have her antidepressants and her wine. Anyway, a civil servant has got into trouble for wearing fetish gear to work. Saorsa Amathea Tweedale,
well done. Well done.
She chose her name as well as her gender, who co-chairs the LGBT plus civil service network, turned up to the Department for Work and Pensions looking something like a version of Pornhub directed by Tim Burton.
Yes.
Miss Tweedale, 58, that's not her there, that's me, is said to wear low-cut black corsets, fishnet tights with high heels and a gothic choker with a pentagram. Oh, this is when she attends the office. Other people in the office complained about it. Boo! These killjoys. I mean, what's wrong with that?
I imagine when I see tax go out of my wages, I do imagine them like this with a big whip, and I do imagine.
And I think if they can't afford the fetish outfit, we could have a whip round for them, couldn't we? We could, hey, I think I'm here all week. We could work on that. It is extraordinary, isn't it? And people will hijack legitimate, let's be, freedom of expression, but there have to be some sort of rules and regulations in place, I would have thought.
It should be it loses its appeal if it's not in private. I don't.
Well, this is the thing with with the pride parades where people are wiggling their bottoms and letting it all hang out and getting up to all kinds of lewd mischief. It's sort of and people are bringing their families.
Exactly.
Just like how can you let go like that when there's family? It must ruin it for the people trying to have fun.
If you're getting dominated and weed on, and you've got a little 5-year-old there watching, it's got to lose something. There's got to be something in you that's like, this isn't as fun.
It's got to lose something.
Yeah, something.
No, but you're absolutely right. There's a time and a place in the office, not time and place. But it's also, you're sensitive to everybody in the conversation and in the work environment. It's not right, but they could, fancy-free Friday, Fetish Friday, have one of those every now and again.
Passive-aggressive note on the front.
Oh, exactly.
People, please not wear their fishnet.
Exactly.
And finally, we'll just squeeze this on. It's been reported in the Daily Mail that a conservative coalition in Iraq has pushed proposals to lower the legal age of marriage for girls to just 9 years old, speaking of fierce backlash from activists and rights groups. But critics fear the Shia code would be based on Jafari jurisprudence, allowing girls as young as 9 and boys as young as 15 to marry. Under current Iraqi law, both can marry from 18, like in a, normal society. It's sparked protests in Baghdad. I mean, this is a religious leadership pushing this on the population. Baghdad sounds like it's, it's quite sensible. The people there are quite sensible. This is religion, spoiling things for people.
I'm just thinking of jurisprudence. Like it's a Beatles song. Judas Priest.
Yeah, got all their albums. Absolutely.
I mean, it's madness, isn't it? I mean, why stop there? Why stop there?
Well, we're going to have to stop here, unfortunately, because that's the end of the show. Thanks so much to my brilliant panel tonight. We've had Ben Adams, the comedian, and Andrew Eborn, the everything, the polymath. See you again next week. And don't forget headliners as well, tonight at 11 p.m. Until then, here's the weather with Catherine Chalk.
Looks like things are heating up.